employees to create threads. Some tricky legal territory there, which is why I want to bring in legal analyst Paul Henderson tonight. Paul, Twitter is threatening a lawsuit. They're not filing a lawsuit yet. Does that tell us something? Do they have a weak case?
That does tell us something. It sends out the signal that they are trying to corral and marginalize what Thread is doing. I think it's really interesting that this is the company that they are choosing to challenge in this way. And it's not even a full challenge because there is no lawsuit. They're sending out the letter, I believe, because it's doing so well. This is a big
Mhm.
splash, and there's, I think I've heard up to 30 million people jumping all over the new app, but we've seen Twitter
No, 70
replicas
million
or
now.
companies that do, oh, 70 million, there you go. But we've
Yeah.
seen replicas or similar companies throughout the universe for quite a long time, including the app that Donald Trump created for himself. And they didn't get letters, they didn't get lawsuits. I don't think this is going to lead to a lawsuit either, because I don't think that they have the legal grounds to challenge the new company and the way that they're alluding to, and only alluding to because they haven't filed an actual lawsuit.
Mhm. I was just checking the numbers here. Yeah, I think Truth Social had something like 5 million people sign up. So while it's gotten all this attention, 70 million in 2 days flat, that's huge. So is there anything illegal at its core about hiring a competitor's former employees? Because Threads, by the way, says these engineers being referenced, they are not working on Threads. But if I hire your former employees, is that cheating?
It's not so much that it's cheating. In the past, we've had quite a bit of litigation interpreting whether non compete clauses can be held against previous or former employees. And those are really hard to enforce because essentially you restrict those individuals from earning money and earning a living. So the courts take a very leery and cautious role in interpreting how those disclosures or how those restrictions can apply to previous employees. And in this case, it is moot because they're not working in the division that Twitter is challenging. And it's not lost on me that if you look back on those employees specifically that Elon Musk himself fired, what did he expect them to
Hmm.
do? Where did he expect them to go? And by the way, none of them were under non-disclosure agreements anyway. So he can only enforce general and
Interesting.
broad copyright type of restrictions in order to challenge the new company. I don't think he has a basis here. It's not a close enough expression of an idea that one
Hmm.
hasn't been expressed before, that they chose not to litigate and challenge and try and attack. And then two, that it's just because I believe that it's doing so well. I don't
Hmm.
think that they have a cause of action that's going to stand up in a court of law if and when they ultimately even file something substantively in the courts. I think this is just a court of public opinion, and they're trying to make a broader name for themselves and remind people who they are. Twitter, the public
Hmm.
feels like they have a lot of challenge. I think these are self imposed harms from Twitter. I think the
Uh-huh.
past things that Elon Musk has done by challenging advertisers, challenging users, essentially punching down to folks that were using the product itself has opened the door for other
So,
opportunities and opportunists to create a new social network.
Paul,
And that's what
let's
this is.
let's talk about similarities because Twitter copies features from others. Spaces on Twitter is Clubhouse.
Exactly.
Everyone else does this too. Instagram stories is Snapchat. Reels is TikTok. And Threads is Twitter, yeah, but then everyone ripped off Facebook's like button. You can't find a thing now that doesn't have a like button, a retweet, or what have you. Copycatting is standard. Is it illegal? Or, by the way, also, do you see anything special about Threads?
I think there's some special things about spreads, but I rather than call it special, I would talk about the things that are individual or unique about threads. For instance, they don't have the hashtags and the things that we might normally find on Twitter. But as we see social networks continue to improve and evolve, each time they grow from MySpace into Twitter, into Facebook, into Instagram, Snapchat, and all of these various things, there's a comfort level that individuals may like. What you need to pay attention to are when those symbols are being used that are interchangeable, and it looks like you can't distinguish one from the other, so that a user might use one on mistake, thinking that they're on another one. When the identification of the actual product or the platform is indistinguishable from another one, that's when you start to have to
Mm-hmm.
worry about challenges that could be supported legally. But that's before we start understanding, because I think when we started the conversation, you asked from a criminal perspective. And so, from a criminal perspective, what we're evaluating is when the government will act, and that's typically the DOJ. And that's in the area around that we would talk about in this case, the antitrust challenges and the monopoly
Right.
challenges when the government would step in and say, what you're
I wanted to
doing
ask you
is
that.
illegal. Yeah.
We only have
Yeah.
about 30 seconds left, so I wanted to ask you that. FTC has said non-competes, we don't want those. Like, you can't tell a chef they can't go be a chef, that they now have to be, in the janitorial sector or something like that. But FTC has gone hard on anti-monopoly. Is it possible the government would actually say, we want competition. We do not want Twitter to be the only game in town?
They do generally, and those cases, there are not a lot of those cases. I don't think this is one of those cases either where the government would come in and say, like, Twitter, you're doing too much. Twitter doesn't want them to do that. That's why you're seeing a letter threatening it and not an actual lawsuit. The government standards, they're worried about both collusion and elimination so that there is
Hmm.
not a competition and one industry dominates in a specific or a particular field.
I
That's
see.
not
All
really
right.
what we have here. But to the degree Twitter tries to do it, that's when they run afoul and possibly have government action.
Paul Henderson, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Good legal lesson. All right, cost of college has more than doubled since 2000. Can we go upstream to cut down on cost? That's coming up.
Wounded Warrior Project has been with me every step of my journey.
Aaron, how you doing, bud?
With experiences that help me realize that I'm not alone.
And specialized programs that give me the